ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ ਸਿੱਖ ਚੈਨਲ ਤ੍ਰਿੰਜਨ ਸ਼ੋ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰੀ ਫੇਰ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਨਿੱਘਾ ਸਵਾਗਤ। ਜਿਵੇਂ ਕਿ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੈ ਇਹ ਪੂਰਾ ਸੀਜ਼ਨ ਆਪਾਂ ਰੂਬੀ ਡਾਲ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਸਫ਼ਰ ਬਾਰੇ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਜਰਨੀ ਬਾਰੇ, ਉਹ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਪੈਦਾ ਹੋਏ, ਕਿੱਥੇ ਆ ਕੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਪਣੀ ਇਹ ਜਰਨੀ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕੀਤੀ ਲੇਖਿਕਾ ਦੀ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖ ਹੀ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਕਿੰਨੀਆਂ ਕਿਤਾਬਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਲਿਖੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਐਂਡ ਬੈਸਟ ਸੈਲਰ। ਆਪਾਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਕਿਤਾਬਾਂ ਬਾਰੇ ਵੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਨੀ ਹੈ, ਪਰ ਆਪਾਂ ਰੂਬੀ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਥੋੜ੍ਹੀ ਜਿਹੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰੀਏ ਫਿਰ ਤੋਂ। ਰੂਬੀ, ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ ਅਗੇਨ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਆਪਣੇ ਘਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੰਨਾ ਰੂਬੀਜ਼ ਬੀਨ ਫੀਡਿੰਗ ਅਸ। ਅਸੀਂ ਹੁਣੇ ਵਾਟਰਮੈਲਨ ਖਾ ਕੇ, ਇਹਨੂੰ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ 'ਚ ਕੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਲਾਲੀ ਵਾਟਰਮੈਲਨ ਨੂੰ? ਤਰਬੂਜ ਅਸੀਂ ਹੁਣੇ ਖਾ ਕੇ ਹਟਿਆ। ਸਾਨੂੰ so Ruby's keeping us very well fed and we're very grateful to you. But going back, ਆਪਾਂ last week ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਸੀਗੀ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਟੀਚਰ ਟ੍ਰੇਨਿੰਗ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕੀਤੀ and then you thought this is not for me. So ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉੱਥੋਂ ਹਟ ਕੇ ਆਪਣੀ part time job, you said you worked at Next, and then ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਲਿਖਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੀ ਹਾਂ and ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਭਰਾ ਨੂੰ, ਆਪਣੇ brother ਨੂੰ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਕਿ I want to write. I'm really interested to know, Ruby, was that the first time that you vocalised that I want to write? Because ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਲਿਖ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ, but it was just personal for you and your writing. Was that the first time that you brought those words to your lips?
Yes, absolutely. That was the first time I ever admitted to anyone that that's my dream, like that's what I want to do.
Had you admitted it to yourself even, or were you just writing? Was it something that you were just doing naturally, or had you ever even admitted to yourself, I want to be a writer?
Oh, absolutely. I admitted it to myself well before I even wrote my first, I admitted it to myself well before I even wrote my first novel, like tried to write the first draft of my novel. I was working part-time at Next throughout my uni years, so as I was writing the novel, working on it every summer, I just remember I used to work in the men's department in the shoe area, and it used to be quite quiet. I would just walk around, like do round and round of the shoe areas, inspecting all the shoes, and I would just constantly daydream in my head, Ruby Dahl's book is in Waterstone, Ruby Dahl, like I would just always dream about it.
Yeah.
So it was something that was strongly, deeply, developed in my mind. It had founded itself in my heart, but I never told anyone that's what I want to do, because even me pursuing the teacher training degree and the course was me pursuing the plan B. So I already had like an actionable thing in my head that this is plan B in case plan A doesn't work, but plan A is to be an author.
But ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜਦੋਂ ਪਹਿਲੀ ਵਾਰੀ, ਚਲੋ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ ਨਾਲ ਤਾਂ ਇਹ ਤੁਸੀਂ you're at this understanding, ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਉਹ ਅਸੀਂ ਬੀਜ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਆ ਕਿ ਜੜ ਲੈ ਚੁੱਕਿਆ ਚੰਗੀ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਦਿਲ ਦੇ ਅੰਦਰ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਇੱਕ ਲੇਖਿਕਾ ਹੀ ਬਣਨਾ ਹੈ। ਪਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ when you ਆਪਣੇ ਜ਼ੁਬਾਨ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਲਫ਼ਜ਼ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਹੋ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਬ੍ਰਦਰ ਨੂੰ ਦੱਸਦੇ ਹੋ and you say the words out loud, I want to be an author. Was it scary admitting that to someone else, or were you full of confidence when you said those words? How was it? Did you have to plan it in your head? How do I do this? Because I do this sometimes where I rehearse conversations in my head ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਮਿਲਾਂਗੀ ਤਾਂ ਇਹ ਕਵਾਂਗੀ. So did you have something like that going on? How was it?
So me and my brother, मैं और मेरा भरा बहुत close हैं. So we would every evening, like we had this tradition where we would always catch up together. He'd come to my room, he'd sit on the chair by the computer, I'd sit on my bed, and we'd just talk about life, talk about everything, catch up. Even now when मेरा विआह हो गया, लेकिन every day I call him, I catch up with him, see how he's doing. And so I knew that he knew that I wasn't doing well. So during that time when I was doing my teacher training course, those 3 months, I really, really fell into this very deep, negative, anxious bubble. I was someone who up until then मैं कदी भी life ਵਿੱਚ कदी कुछ give up नहीं ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀ. I was, I studied hard at school. I was a straight A student at A levels, and I studied hard at university. So I was never the kind of person like मैं कदी मैं कदी rebel नहीं ਕੀਤਾ, मैं कदी कुछ गलत नहीं ਕੀਤਾ what parents would say गलत. I had never done that. I had never let my family down in any way by doing anything that was out of the ordinary for good, perfect Ruby. And at that point, I'm not doing
That
well.
sounds like a book title, you know, Good, Perfect Ruby.
So at that point now, I'm pursuing my teacher training course. I can't wake up to go for it. I'm turning up late every day. I'm getting more and more stressed, more and more anxious,
mental
more and
health
more. It's my mental health is affecting me, and so my brother realized this, that I wasn't doing well, and so he just asked me, and he was like, "What's going on with you? You know, you've not been well for the last few weeks. Are you okay?" And then that's when I told him. It was scary for me. It was very scary for me because admitting it to him meant admitting it to my family, telling everyone I'm not pursuing my teacher training.
So you just said it was scary telling him.
Yes, it was scary.
Why was it scary?
Because it felt so unrealistic. It felt so like, it's like me telling my brother I want to go see a unicorn. You know, I want to be an author. I felt like I am
something unachievable,
unattainable, unrealistic.
Okay.
And I was scared about what he would think.
So was there also an element of fear in how he might respond? Like, what did you think? What could have? Because sometimes, like I said, when I think of conversations, I think, right, this is going to go one of two ways.
Yeah.
They're either going to say this or say this.
Yeah.
So did you have that alternative in your head that he might say? You know, obviously in an ideal world, which he did say, go for it, Ruby.
Yeah.
But was there an alternative in your mind that it could have gone a different way?
My brother he is a very practical guy. So his most impractical thing he's ever done is have faith in me to pursue my dreams. But I genuinely, in my head, I thought, okay, he would tell me, like, tera dimag kharab hai, what do you think you're doing? You know, like, you've got a stable career lined up for you. What do you think you're going to achieve? Don't throw it away. But he had more faith in me than I did in myself.
Wow.
So when I told him, he was like, go for it. And I was like, I don't think there's any likelihood of me ever being, you know, published or getting a, you know, contract or even being a full-time author. Like, that's very, very far-fetched. And he was like, give it a go. He was like, give it a go. He's like, you don't need to worry about finances. He goes, I'm here. You don't need to pay any bills. You don't need to pay rent. You don't need to do any of that.
Ruby, had you shared any of your writings with him until this point?
No.
Like, he was completely blind and saying to you, just go for it.
Yeah. He knew nothing about, like, he had never seen anything I had ever written. He hadn't even looked at my manuscript. Nothing.
That must be just so empowering, just somebody believing in you rather than yourself.
Absolutely. And up until I met my husband, my brother was my, I would say, backbone in me pursuing my goals, in me pursuing my dreams. He was the person that kept me going. And then when I met my husband, he became also that strengthening, that empowering person. And them two have literally been, like, they've been my backbone throughout this entire process. Like, I would not be able to write and be where I am without the initial support and, you know, love of my brother, and then the support and love of my husband after when I met him.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, you've reminded me of something, because I remember you saying that you started writing when you were 10. When I was 10, I used to look in the mirror and I used to say things like, see you at the same time, same place next week. I used to imagine myself as a TV show host. And just like you, all I ever saw was British white people presenting TV shows. A Sikh channel varge channel, ਆਪਣੇ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ channel, ਅਸੀਂ ਕਦੇ ਸੋਚਿਆ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀਗਾ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਕੋਈ ਇੱਕ ਵਿਦੇਸ਼ਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਰਿਐਲਿਟੀ ਵੀ ਹੋ ਸਕਦੀ ਆ, ਜਾਂ ਕਿ ਮੇਰੇ ਵਰਗਾ ਕੋਈ ਇਨਸਾਨ TV ਤੇ ਵੀ ਆ ਸਕਦਾ, ਕੋਈ show present ਕਰ ਸਕਦਾ. So I kind of relate to that in a different kind of way, but I get where you're coming from. And if ਮੈਂ ਵੀ ਕਦੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀਗਾ ਕਿ I want to be a TV show host. It was only until I started working at SIKH Channel, I went home, and this is me at 48, and I'm telling, you know, my family ke, oh, menu SIKH Channel de utte menu show mil gaya, and things like that. So I do kind of understand the feeling and the emotion behind that. So your brother says, go for it, Ruby. And then what happens? You share any writings with him, or do we share it with the extended family, your dad? What happens next?
So at that time, stuff is happening in my personal life. So I leave my PGCE. I've got very low mental health. I'm feeling really anxious. I've now gone back to my part-time job at Next, where I'm getting paid minimum wage. And suddenly, you know, I'm doing this thing, but suddenly I'm overwhelmed with this high sense of failure. Like, I failed at
because
something.
You said कि मैं कदे कोई चीज़ आद विच छड्डी नहीं सीगी, and ए ज़िंदगी दे विच पहली बारी के teacher training नू तुसी आद दे विच ਛੱਡ ਕੇ ਸੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਹੁਣ ਮਹਿਸੂਸ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਕਿ you feeling like a failure?
Yeah, I'm feeling like I've let myself down. I've let my family down. I have, like, how could I do this? And so, of course, there's the self-doubt there,
Yeah, can I just ask, you saying that you felt like you'd let your family down. Did your family ever say to you, Ruby, you've let us down?
No.
Yeah.
No.
So these feelings that we often experience,
Yeah.
they often manifest from within us.
Yeah.
Where we think that what other people might or might not think. I'm sorry I interrupted, but I feel like
Yeah.
it's important because that's what your writing is about as well.
Absolutely.
But sorry,
Yeah, no, I think the
You
the
felt like
idea,
yeah.
I felt like a failure, but the idea that, when you pursue a goal, the idea is from the outside, it looks like, oh my God, this person is so inspirational. They left everything and they just went to pursue this one goal. But it's like nobody talks about those very deep, negative, cloudy emotions that you feel when you first start to pursue something that's so hard to pursue. Like, you have self-doubt, you have denial, you have, you feel like you'll never be able to make it, you have imposter syndrome, you have all these emotions that you feel that already stops you from pursuing that initial goal. And so the first few weeks I really dealt with poor mental health. I went back to my part-time job and I tried to work on my novel at the same time. But then things just gradually got worse, and I went through a few personal experiences, and I was really, really dealing with very, very poor mental health. And so I couldn't write creatively anymore. I felt like I can't pursue this novel. I can't, I need to let out my emotions. I need to let out how I'm feeling. And at the time, I had an Instagram page, and the Instagram page I had created to essentially, I had a WordPress, which is a blog, and on the blog I would write short stories. It was a way for, like when you apply for a literary agent, which is an agent who gets you like a contract with a publishing company, they ask you, do you have a platform already? Because social media is big now, right?
Hanji.
And this is 8 years ago, so us time social media was getting really big, and having an existing readership was very important to get a contract. So मैं सोचा चलो मैं एक blog बनानी हूँ. I created a blog and I started sharing short stories on there. And then on Instagram I created a page.
Were those short stories real life stories, or were they still was it still creative writing?
It was creative in that it was real. So like I wrote about my first Diwali experience, my Diwali experience when I can't remember, there was this month where it was, I don't know what it was called, Black Diwali or something, where there was this like hoo-ha on media.
Yes, I do.
About not celebrating Diwali this year. And that was the first Diwali that my little brother, who's now 9, it was his first Diwali. So then I wrote a short story about that, about how like it's supposed to be a time of celebration. It's his first Diwali, but we're not celebrating, like, that kind of thing. So those were the kind of short stories I shared on, and then I would post like a screenshot of it on my Instagram page. So when I'm going through this really difficult mental health experience, I somehow come across these writings, these quotes on social media, these pieces, these micro poetry pieces like shairi, all that kind of stuff, which I can really relate to. I start writing it. And as I start writing it, I slowly, don't know what overwhelmed me, but I create a pseudonym. So before I was Ruby Dal on Instagram, then I changed it to r.dal, and then I blocked like 30 people from my community, 30, 40 people from my community, and then I started sharing these pieces.
So what was the idea? So let's just go back a little bit. So you feel like a failure.
Yeah.
You used some words. You said I was consumed with self-doubt, anxiety, and things like that. And I asked you, I said, you said you felt like a failure, and I said, did anybody say that to you? And you said, no, it's how I felt. But when you say that do you think that all of those emotions, the self-doubt, are born from fear? What would you say about that, or do you think it's something else?
No, I definitely think it's fear. I think self-doubt, it's not just fear.
No.
Okay, so what it is our sense of self, our sense of who we are, is based on our foundational experiences, right? So they always say कि जो तुम्हारा like relationship तुम्हारे parents नाल है, when you're younger, it determines your sense of self. It determines how you feel about yourself, who you think you are, what your place in the world is, how you feel about others, and the kind of relationships that you form. My sense of self was very distorted. Okay, so my sense of self by the time I was 21 was not positive. I was not confident. I was not like I can achieve anything that I set my mind to. I was quite a
Even though there was so much evidence of you having achieved so much, like being a straight A student, you know, doing your degree and things like that, you still, even though there was evidence, but it's more to do with how you feel about yourself.
yeah, because that to me is not evidence of me being special. It's just evidence of everybody does it. Like everybody works
But not
hard to
everybody
study.
does. There's only one Ruby Dowell.
But at that time, it wasn't, you know, I did not think that there was anything special about me, you know. Everyone is special in their own way, of course. And I did not feel that. I did not think that I was special in my own way. I just had a very, very low sense of self. I wasn't the kind of person who could leave something like stable and then be like, okay, I'm confident and I can achieve this new. I was the kind of person who,
That's right.
I was the kind of person who, if I've left something and that something was stable or that something was something that I should have committed to, I'm going to feel horrible about myself as a result of it. And that's why I had low self-esteem. It wasn't the expectations that other people had set of me, it was the expectations that I had of myself that this is not going to work. And now I've left this stable career and I've proven that I'm a failure, that I can't, you know, commit to the end. And now I don't think I'll ever be able to commit to the end in anything. And that's how I felt right after I left.
How do you switch that around then? How do you get to a point of this really place where you're, you know, in a dark place, you're really feeling low about yourself and everything, and look at you, there's so many books here that you've completed all of them. How did you get out of that place?
Writing literally healed me.
So you said, so you started the WordPress, the blog, but then you also said that you blocked people from your community.
I blocked people from my community.
So you used a pseudonym. Is that the right word?
Pseudonym, yeah.
So you used a pseudonym, which is a pen name, if you want to call it. And ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੀ community ਦੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਪਰਿਵਾਰ ਦੇ ਮੈਂਬਰਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਉਸ page ਤੋਂ block ਕਰ ਦਿੱਤਾ।
ਪਰਿਵਾਰ ਸੀ, my close friends, yes, ਲੇਕਿਨ ਜੋ like external community ਦੀ ਜੋ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦੀ gossiping ਜਾਂ ਜੋ ਵੀ।
ਹਾਂਜੀ, ਪਰ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕੀ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਕਿ why did you feel that they couldn't be on there?
Because the kind of topics I started writing about, so I didn't blog them up until I was sharing short stories from my blog, right? उस टाइम तक वो सी, लेकिन जब मैं like mental health, healing, depression, love, relationships, when I started writing about those topics, that's when I realized that I don't want to be judged. Like it was again self-doubt. You know, it was I don't what will people think?
ਕੀ ਸੋਚੇਗਾ ਮੇਰੇ ਬਾਰੇ?
ਲੋਕ ਕੀ ਸੋਚਣਗੇ basically, you know? And because I didn't have, now that I do have,
you can't hide now, Ruby.
And at that time, so at that time I was like, I'm writing about, because as you said, how did I get from that place of low mental health? See, I was, you know, I was depressed. I was genuinely depressed and I was feeling very low self-esteem. How did I get from that point to where I am now? Is writing healed me. And how did it heal me? When I took the inspiration from oh shairi jo main padhi, jo main quotes padhe, main bhi likhne lagi. I started writing about how I was feeling. I started writing about mental health. I started writing about all these topics jo asare culture vich taboo honde ne. Topics we can't talk about. What does mental health mean? Suddenly everyone's like, oh my god, you know, it's not uste depression nahi hai, uste kisi ne pakad leta hai or whatever, uste karam hai ya jo bhi hai, whatever it is, you know, it was something that wasn't talked about much. And that's the kind of pieces I started sharing on my social media. And that was the reason why I blocked them. But I did unblock them a year later. So it wasn't like I kept them blocked the whole time. But within a year, when I published my first book, which was Memories Unwound, it was like a micro poetry book.
Have we got that one here?
Yes, we do. It's
this one,
right
isn't it?
here. Right here.
So ਇਹ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ
ਪਹਿਲੀ book
ਸੀਗੀ. Memories Unwound. Healing is not a destination, it's a process, it says. And you just said, my writing healed me. So would you say that you're healed, or do you still think that healing is an ongoing thing?
Yeah, so I say that we are on various different healing journeys in our lives. So like you could be healing from your first heartbreak, but you could also be healing from the death of a loved one. You could be healing from your first failure, your first friendship breakup. कई जो healing journeys होती है ना, वो जल्दी you reach a softer, lighter place where when you think about that experience, okay, like say I'm healing from my first friendship breakup, I am more likely to reach a place of contentment regarding that friendship than I am about losing a parent. Right? Those healing journeys are lifelong. So when I say that writing healed me, I would say it healed parts of me.
Yes.
In that I feel comfortable and okay to talk about certain painful
I
experiences.
think maybe not healing. So I think what the writing, please correct me if I'm wrong, what it does is brings you to a place of acceptance.
Yeah.
So healing, like you said,
It's a journey.
It's an
It's a
ongoing
process,
process. But what we do get through that process is we get to a point of acceptance, accepting us for who we are. This is me.
Yeah.
And unapologetically being me. And that doesn't mean being arrogant. It just means being that holistically accepting ourselves for who we are.
Yeah. And it also, I think it's a lot of, I would say that writing for me has helped. It's like a form of trauma work. So, like, even when you go to therapy, even when you get talking therapy and so on, they really encourage you to write. They encourage you to journal.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing is that journaling, what is it? You're just getting what's out from the inside.
Yeah.
You're
transforming your, whatever the energy is.
Outside onto paper.
I mean, do not underestimate the power of journaling. I absolutely agree with you. But this book, this was your first book.
This was my first
Memories
book, Micro
Unwound.
Poetry.
And it's Shairi di Kitaba, it's in English, it's all poetry, but I just happened to stumble on this page and it says, one thing heartbreak teaches you is that eyes can lie too.
Yeah, oh my God.
So, ਇੱਕ ਚੀਜ਼ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਜੇ ਸਾਡਾ ਦਿਲ ਟੁੱਟਦਾ ਹੈ ਸਿਖਾਉਂਦੀ ਹੈ ਤਾਂ ਉਹ ਇਹ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਅੱਖਾਂ ਵੀ ਝੂਠ ਬੋਲ ਸਕਦੀਆਂ ਨੇ. And I came across this one as well. Sometimes I think our hearts just have minds of their own. ਕਦੇ ਕਦੇ ਮੇਰੇ ਦਿਲ 'ਚ ਖਿਆਲ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਸ਼ਾਇਦ ਦਿਲਾਂ ਦੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਦਿਮਾਗ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਨੇ. That's so beautiful.
I would love to translate it in Punjabi.
I would love to translate it for you.
That would be so amazing.
I would
honestly,
love
because
to do
the way that you're saying it, it's just making it so much more poetic.
I think so, because I think it's such a shame that this is limited for certain readers, and I think we can translate it to Punjabi and
I would love that.
Hindi as well, and I mean, I'm just reading little bite-sized things out of it.
But see, this is when I was healing, and this is when I started actually dabbing at micro poetry. Obviously, I moved from micro poetry to prose, which is like, my quotes jo likh diyan. And then now a full self-help book, which is just a whole book. And I would definitely want to say that I am more of the self-help writer than I am the poet
now.
Definitely.
This is almost like, this is your journaling.
This is my journal. I would say at that time it was literally my Instagram page was my journal. And then I published like two poetry books, which was essentially just these thoughts.
Well, let's have a look at
these
the second
emotions
one as well.
and thoughts.
But again, I've just flicked through and we spend our nights dreaming about the right things. We spend our days doing the wrong ones. So ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੀਆਂ ਰਾਤਾਂ ਗੁਜ਼ਾਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਸਹੀ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਬਾਰੇ ਸੁਪਨੇ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਹੋਏ ਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਦਿਨ ਬਿਤਾਉਂਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਗਲਤ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੋਏ. Wow, that's so lovely. You said you wrote, so this was your first book,
self-published,
And I actually remember some years ago I came to was it one of your book launches?
It was a second book which was A Handful of Stars.
So I was in awe of you in then.
Really?
Yes, I was.
You were amazing. I still remember that whole experience, and I'm so grateful that I got to share that evening with you, because it's still one of my most favorite memories of my.
I'm so grateful that from that day where this book was released to where we are now with the path to self-love, and here I am interviewing you.
Which is crazy. Where does life bring us?
Which is something I wanted to do for a very long time. For how beautiful it is to be loved for your broken parts. To be loved only for your broken parts. ਕਿੰਨਾ ਖੂਬਸੂਰਤ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਕੋਈ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪਿਆਰ ਕਰੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਟੁੱਟੇ ਹੋਏ ਹਿੱਸਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਪਿਆਰ ਕਰੇ ਸਿਰਫ ਔਰ ਸਿਰਫ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਟੁੱਟੇ ਹੋਏ ਹਿੱਸਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਪਿਆਰ ਕਰੇ. It's just so beautiful. I really love this. So you've started this Instagram page, and we're going to talk about that and more. I lost all track of time there. Wanted to talk so much, I got really absorbed in the book. So we'll meet you again next week, Ruby, and if you'll allow us back into your home,
absolutely,
then we'll talk some more. Thank you so much. ਫਿਰ ਮਿਲਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਦੇਖਣਾ ਨਾ ਭੁੱਲਣਾ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ।